In case you missed it, here's a Sports Animal Rewind.
Friend of the show, one of the great representatives of the University of Tennessee, a fantastic broadcaster for Fox Sports and the NFL Network. Charles Davis joins us here on the News Sentinel Sports page. Charles, Vince, and Evan, great to talk to you as always. Charles, how are you?
I'm doing well. Good to hear you guys' voices.
Great to hear. Great to hear your voice, and the excitement level is just really impressive. Not only for the start of the college football season, Charles, but for the start of the Tennessee season. I don't know how much has trickled down with you staying so busy with college and the NFL prep, but boy, the excitement level for Tennessee is really impressive right now for Butch Jones and this team.
Yeah, it's pretty nice, isn't it? And I think a lot of people would say, well, I would expect the excitement level to be high anytime Tennessee's mentioned, and it always is. I think there's a special level about it now because I think there's a very good connection between a program's base, its fans, its supporters, its people, the nation, as we like to call them nowadays, Big Orange Country, and the head coach, which they haven't had in a few years. And that's a big deal for everyone who's connected with Tennessee athletics.
Charles, did you get a chance to see the alternate smoky gray jerseys and then the tweaks with the other four jerseys? You get a chance to see that, and if so, what'd you think?
Yeah, I did, and I think you guys know by now I'm an old traditionalist, right? so I'm real big on. I like to wear. For me, I think it was all orange. Fans orange jersey. And I like that look actually at different times. All white look. That sort of a deal. The black jerseys, when they broke them out for South Carolina with the orange pants, I about died. But mainly because I wouldn't have cut them with the orange. I wouldn't have gone orange pants. I would have gone white pants. But I get it. And we did look very Halloweenish that night. And guess what? They won. And here's the other thing I have to keep in mind all the time. I'm past the age of really being able to get a vote. And what that means is, those are the kids who are out playing. Mm-hmm. They're the ones who like this. This is what motivates them, or they feel good in it and the whole thing. And, whether they're wearing green, black, orange, whatever, it's still the University of Tennessee. And if that's going to work and win, then I'll take it every single time. We all know it's not the jersey. It's just wearing the jerseys and et cetera, et cetera. But, the smoky gray one that they came out with, that threw me a little bit to start. It could have been worse. I know that.
Yep.
That part I know. It could have been a whole lot worse. And the rest of it didn't matter to me that much. Everything seems to be very, very similar to what we normally wear at Tennessee. So I don't have a major problem with it. As long as the kids like it and the kids will come out and play. Look, Washington State revamped their whole uniform a couple of years ago. Mm-hmm. They won one game last year. You think anyone's talking about the uniforms anymore? Or they're talking about can they play? The uniforms count if you're winning in them. That's why Oregon continues to get great attention for what they do with their uniforms, because they win 11 every year. I mean, that's the big deal. Ohio State can change to a different uniform for their traditional game with Michigan, and they're winning these games. No one's losing their mind over stuff like that. You lose a bunch of games, the uniform talk quickly tamps down. It's right back to we need to recruit. We got to get some players. We got to do whatever. And by the way, I hate that uniform. That's what happens, man.
That is the way it works, and I wonder. This kind of segues to the next question, Charles, about this coming season. Everybody knows there's going to be some challenges. What do you think is a realistic expectation for this year for Tennessee?
Well, I think you guys know by now where I am with Coach Jones and our relationship and how long I've known him and what have you. I will not put a number figure, and you got to understand, guys, I'm not as an analyst. This time I'm going to speak as a volunteer, and then I'll get back to the analyst role, okay? So let me declare who I am at the moment, all right? This is the hat I'm wearing. I don't want to put a number on what Coach Jones and this team may be able to achieve or what I expect out of them. You guys know what I expect, a more disciplined team, all the buzzwords that go with a team that's going to play hard, a team that's going to play with some heart. But this team has a lot to learn. Remember, Coach Jones is he and his staff just getting started on this deal. They haven't gotten into the third quarter where they've played tough with someone and then adversity hits, and we've seen this team melt away in recent years. Coach Jones hasn't gone through that with his team yet to where he has a chance to coach that and coach through that, and the team hasn't gone through that with him. All of those things. Now, let me flip and be that analyst again. It really is plus or minus starting with 6, isn't it, guys? I mean, that's really what you're talking about in terms of number of wins. All right? Plus or minus 6 being the number that you start out with, is, in my humble opinion. The idea of them going to Oregon and then turning around and going to Florida, that's stunning to me. It's just like, how does that happen? I mean, and we can blame anyone and anywhere and typically end up blaming people who aren't around anymore. So I don't want to play that game because it's not necessarily all their fault. A lot of times this is part of the Tennessee tradition. We play intersectional games like this. We have throughout our entire time at Tennessee. It's part of recruiting and being a I'm not sure, I can't remember exactly when they made the game with Oregon, but it wasn't 20 years ago when we thought Oregon was pretty mediocre. To go to Oregon, turn around, and end up in Gainesville, you're really stressing out a program that's trying to. I mean, Bill Snyder at Kansas State would have killed someone, probably literally, and had that changed, and they would have played Austin Peay, and then they would have played Austin Peay probably again. That never would have happened under his watch. No chance.
We're visiting with Charles Davis from Fox Sports and the NFL Network, Vince Ferrara, Evan Woodbury here on the News Sentinel Sports page. The next season, Tennessee is at Oklahoma, so it's starting at home and home with them.
So things really get better,
right?
Because correct me if I'm wrong, guys. I'm on this. Correct me if I'm wrong. Not only do they have Oregon, this finishes the home with Oklahoma. Is Nebraska and Ohio State on upcoming schedules too?
I know they've got a home and home with Nebraska.
Yeah, Ohio State bought out of the series with Tennessee, so they do have.
They don't want any part of the Volunteers. See that? The Buckeyes, they don't want any part of this. They know we're coming. They know it. As soon as the Buckeyes really looked at the thing, they went 12-0, and they said, "Yeah, we went 12-0." But you know something? Let's get out of that. I like it. See, Coach Jones has already said word out. No, I'm just kidding.
No,
we're out of the Ohio State series, but we got Nebraska, right?
Yeah, Urban Meyer, he knows what's happening in the SEC. So, Charles, what are you most looking forward? I'm sorry. What are you most looking forward to? Some things in this first weekend that catch your attention in college football.
Well, I think starting tonight, North Carolina. A lot of fun because there's so much discussion about Clowney and what have you, and of course South Carolina with their aspirations, and rightly so. This could be the best team they've had in South Carolina history. Guys, I'll be very surprised if North Carolina doesn't play very well tonight.
Mm-hmm.
I think that they will. They have offensive tackle James Hurst, who's a terrific player, but the trigger guy Bryn Renner, got a chance to spend some time with him this summer. Really impressed by how I watched him fling it around this summer. I know it was against air and all that other stuff. Don't get me wrong, but I really like the makeup of him. And they really started to get it together down the stretch last year, guys. I mean, if you go back and look at that schedule and look at what they did, remember how deep they had to go to get Georgia Tech to play because everyone was on probation, Miami, North Carolina, the whole deal. I think North Carolina won something like 5 out of 6 to finish. And the way Larry Fedora controls a ball game with his offense and tempo, and everyone thinks everything is just super fast with them. It's not. He's going to take care of his defense at times, too, and slow some things down. He'll come at you with a mid-level tempo, do a bunch of things. But Renner can fling it. Now, I'd be more confident in North Carolina if Giovanni Bernard were back.
Mm-hmm.
He's not. But I just like the way they go about things. It could cause some problems for South Carolina tonight. Could be a lot of fun.
Let me go back to Oregon. How much of a drop-off should we expect with Chip Kelly now with the Eagles and Mark Helfrich leading that program now?
Should be none in the short term. Okay? Should be no drop-off in the short term. As long as it's under, because you got to see how the recruiting goes, right? How much of a draw was Chip and how much of it was his influence at the top of the deal. A lot of these coaches at Oregon have stayed. And a number of them have stayed through multiple head coaches. How many of them had designs on wanting to be the head coach there? I figure probably only the D coordinator, Nick Aliotti, who also stayed. The rest of them probably had a pretty good idea they weren't going to get the job, like the lifestyle there, ready to work. So you have to see how that staff interacts and meshes. I think they'll be okay. Short term, I see zero drop-off. Long term, check back with me in 3 years and see where Markel is. Here's one thing to keep in mind with him, though. All right? He grew up in Oregon. He's an Oregon native. So, like, when people talk about what's your dream job, and you hear about guys who always want to coach my alma mater, want to coach for my state school, guess what? They got that guy. So I don't see Mark Helfrich as looking at this job saying, boy, if I kick butt here, I can make the next big move. I think that this is the big move for him. He'd like to be there for a good long time.
Charles, you talked about going to Oregon and then going to Florida for Tennessee, and putting on your analyst hat and your player hat to a certain extent. There is so much optimism about the team right now among the players, but it's August,
yeah.
And then you go to these really tough road games. You do a brutal October, and then you've got these winnable games that you have to win in November to be bowl eligible. They might have to close the season with 3 wins.
Mm-hmm.
Can the morale be strong enough after going through this brutal October and going through some of these games that frankly could be blowouts?
And that's where the value of Butch Jones and his staff come into play, because this is a fresh start for everyone. If you were asking me this question with previous regimes, I would be very skeptical, just because they had shown that when things got really tough, they didn't totally stay the course. Would I be making a statement that would be incorrect?
No, I think that's along the right lines.
Okay, so now with the new staff, they're going to get tested that way, right? They're going to get tested where, everyone's excited now. Now go to Oregon. Let's say they go to Oregon and Oregon puts a beat down on them, which wouldn't be totally unexpected now, would it?
No.
Just because of what we're talking about, talent gap, how Oregon plays, and we saw Oregon, what they did when they came to Knoxville. Florida, and get slugged again in Florida. Now you're getting tested on all this. All that resolve you had in August? Do you still have it? Are you going to come back to work the same way? Going to do those sort of things? I'm more optimistic about it than I have been. I think these kids will find a way to respond. The key, of course, as you know, is will you have catastrophic injuries along the way that take you out of that? As long as those things don't happen, I think this team will have a chance to rebound. And the next part of it, too, is what if they go to Oregon and play them tough? And you get that so-called moral victory out of the whole thing. Although we all hate them, let's just be realistic. What if they go to Florida and it's a heck of a game? Remember, Lane Kiffin's 1 year at Tennessee, they played Florida a lot tougher than anyone thought was going to happen, didn't they?
Mm-hmm.
And to me, it helped translate down the road into what? Beating Georgia, beating South Carolina, almost beating Alabama. You see what I'm saying? All of those different things roll into it. If they can go in there and show that kind of toughness and grit and resolve and hang in there, that could be a big, big deal. I'm not sitting here saying they can go there and win these games. Right now, sitting here, I have a hard time saying that. I'm hopeful. And with Florida, what I find interesting with Florida is we're giving them a lot of respect, and they deserve it. But they've got a lot to prove on the offensive side of the football.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's no way they can go through another season and win 11 games and have the 10th ranked offense in the SEC. They can't do that 2 years in a row. They've lost too much on defense, even though they're talented. I don't think their defense can hold people quite the same way. So Jeff Driscoll, their quarterback's got to make a quantum leap, as does their offense. And who knows? Who knows? Because they're struggling out wide. I mean, if you're taking one of your better players and saying we're going to play them both ways, guess what? You don't have enough on the offensive side of the football.
Last couple things with you, Charles. Charles Davis joining us here on the New Sentinel Sports page. Just, I don't want to eat up the rest of our time with Johnny Manziel talk, but just your reaction to the half-game suspension he received for that Rice game for what has transpired.
This is the book's closed on it, right? Right? The NCAA closed the book on this one, correct?
Right.
This is the deal they brokered?
Hands are wiped.
Everybody's cracking up across the nation. You know that, and I know that.
Mm-hmm.
It's pretty simple, right? Everybody's cracking up. And it was the deal of the NCAA didn't have enough to get him, and what's going to happen now is that most people across the country are saying you didn't want to get him. I'm not sure that that's true. I think the NCAA actually would rather get him because if they could have, because they've got a lot of egg in their face for so many other things, this is another loss for them. Because everybody's cracking up across the country. You miss a half game against Rice, you didn't have enough to get him, he goes on and plays, and off you go. Hey, look. Let's just place it, make it real simple now. Everybody wants to see people do the right thing. but most people in the country wanted to see whatever the right thing was happen after the game against Alabama anyway. Everybody wanted to see him play against Alabama. So guess what? We're getting it now.
NFL, who will make the biggest jump and improvement in the NFL this season?
A couple of teams. I think the same are already on that track. Again, although it's a very tough division, but they have that shot. They always gets identified as that team, or I should say in the last few years has always been identified, but the biggest jump in improvements, the Kansas City Chiefs. They were 2-14 guys. It's what on their roster. Now you get Andy Reid in and crew, and Alex Smith at quarterback. I don't think they can help but jump and win another 6-7 games, minimum.
Just a quick thought on the Tennessee Titans with Jake Locker this year with Mike Munchak seems to be pretty important for him.
Yeah, it's very important, but I like what I saw. Actually, I do the Atlanta Falcons preseason package, and I was in watch that game, and I was pretty impressed with Jake Locker. Was very sharp in that game. Looked at that. I've seen him look. So I was very impressed. So with the offensive line, Levitri in the offseason, drafting Chance Warmack, and guess who's looking like CJ 2K again? Yes, he is. Can't wait to see Justin Hunter get fully incorporated into the offense. He's coming along slowly, but Kenny Britt eats up a lot of catches there.
Charles, what's your broadcast schedule? Where can fans expect to find you on television coming up?
Saturday night, Boise State at Washington, 10 o'clock Eastern on Fox Sports 1. The brand new channel on Fox Sports, everything's going there for the first week. And then after that, all the games that I'm fortunate enough to do are on regular Fox. Week 2, West Virginia at Oklahoma. And week 3, the Ohio State University at Cal. And that's my schedule right now as I know it.
All right. Exciting stuff happening with Fox Sports 1, and you can see Charles Boise State at Washington on Fox Sports 1 Saturday night, and representing the Vols as always. Charles, great to visit with you. Really appreciate it. Have a super start to the college football season.
Hey, great to visit with you guys as well. Thanks for having me on. It's always an honor to Joe let me on air like that. And hello to everyone back in Big Orange Country, and as always, go Vols. I'm all behind Coach Jones.